It's the Growler with PD&Jay. Here to analyze for you today. From Growler Bet to Jay's got stats. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler Podcast.
All right. Welcome into the latest edition of PD&Jay. Paul Dehner Jr., Jay Morrison, here with you. Happy Halloween to you, Jay. What's going on?
Same to you. Happy Halloween. You know, it's one of those full circle holidays where loved it as a kid, and then you become an adult, and I hated it. I don't like dressing up. I don't like the pressure of finding a costume. So it was one of my least favorites, and now I love it again. I love sitting out front, having a beer, making a fire. No fire tonight. Might burn the neighborhood down. But just looking at all the kids, the costumes, seeing that we've lived in this house for 25 years, so you know a lot of the people that come up, and just really enjoy passing out the candy and being on the other side of it.
Yeah, no, it does come in waves in your life, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're younger, and then we know being at OU, it's obviously massive.
Yeah,
So that was always a ton of fun. And you kind of get away from it. Now I have kids now, and it's like one of my favorite days of the year. I mean, we were joking that we were going to go give our neighbors a hard time because they just put their Halloween decorations up this week, because we've had ours up all of October in anticipation of the big Halloween night. And it's like, no, that's probably more normal that people are only like thinking about Halloween for a few days and not necessarily for the entire month of October like it is in our house. But look, I got a 7 and a 5, so we are in it. We are in the core. We are in the absolute core of it. So it's a very exciting times around our house today. And but Joe Burrow wants no piece of it. He's in the down part of it.
Yeah.
He's in the down part of the Halloween where he doesn't care about it, doesn't know what we're celebrating, and wants no part of Halloween. So, hey, more power to you.
I wonder if growing up in Athens, he snuck up to Court Street, had some underage pops at some point in his life.
Yeah, you have to feel like it's a little bit of blasphemy from Joe.
Yeah,
taking shots at Halloween, such a celebration for the city of Athens. Although I don't know if all the people that live in Athens always felt about it the same way that the students did there. So
a lot of fine revenue coming into the city that week.
No question. I'm sure you contributed at some point. We got a lot of stuff that we want to get to on this show. We are going to take a deeper look at the Raiders Sunday. The Bengals will play 1:00 against the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll take a closer look at that. We're going to talk about some potential changes the Bengals could make. I have a story up on The Athletic today talking about a couple of questions that obviously a lot of you guys have been bringing up. That is, would Zach Taylor give up play calling? Is Lou Anarumo on the hot seat? We're going to talk about the potential of Jermaine Burton's role evolving, which it looks like it's going to grow significantly. You'll hear from Dan Pitcher on that. Jay caught up with Marvin Lewis, who is on Antonio Pierce's staff. So we're going to bring you an interview with Marvin Lewis from Vegas. Looking forward to that as he makes his first return in any sort of official game setting. He came back for Chad's Ring of Honor. But that's really the first time we've seen Marvin Lewis back at the stadium. And so this will be his first return as a coach. So Jay caught up with that. Really looking forward to hearing from him. We'll have stats, we'll have Growler Bets, run, passer, boots, predictions, all the things that you come to expect from us. Want to remind everybody, you can go to Cincy Shirts if you are looking to just refresh your wardrobe, get some Growl Pal merch, whatever you want to do, go there. Go to there and use Growler Pod promo, and you get 10% off your order at any time. Today they have a better promo. This is the one day I'm going to say don't use our promo. They have a 31% off slasher promo just today for Halloween on all your purchases. So you can go there and then tomorrow get back to our 10%. Which is fine. We'll take that. We'll also, our next live show, so BetMGM, Nation Kitchen and Bar down at the Banks, our next live show is going to be on Monday, the 11th of November, before Monday Night Football at 7:00. We do the preseason, the season preview Media Madness show, and that's been so popular, and and we had so many people came out for that. We did that before the Thursday night opener. We're going to do a mid-season Media Madness show that we're going to do before the Monday Night Football game that day. We'll have our good friends from Graders, $3 Cincy Lights, all the stuff that we normally do. Keep an eye out for more information on the giveaway on this one. I think you're really, really going to like it. So we'll get more information on that. But wanted to let you know that is going to be our next live show. It's going to be a ton of fun down there, and we're going to go all into all things Bengals at midseason. They'll be coming off that Thursday nighter in Baltimore, so there will be plenty to talk about, I'm sure. So we hope to see you down there. We will certainly make it worth your while with all the stuff that we love to do down there. You can go to nationkitchenandbar.com if you want to reserve a table for that or any big event or big game. Jay, you know they do the UFC fights.
Yeah.
They get all the UFC fights down there, and they don't charge a cover or anything like that. You have I know some places do because the way UFC works, but they've apparently been getting big crowds for the UFC fights. So if you're a big UFC person, you can go there, you can reserve a table and know that you'll have a spot to go watch any of their pay-per-views and stuff. They've got a cool following going down there for UFC stuff now.
Yeah, I was talking to them about that, and it's a big crowd, but it's not you can't order drinks, you can't get anything done crowd. But it's big enough where you feel the electricity. Anybody that's watched a UFC fight, it's just so much. I mean, in person is one thing, but then watching it at home by yourself just doesn't have the same feel when you watch it at a watch party or even at someone's house. It's a really, really electric atmosphere when you're with a group of people cheering for someone to get their brains bashed in.
Yeah. Speaking of that, let's talk about Bengals Raiders. Joe Burrow declaring this must-win game. So the armband comes out again. At this point, it's kind of a lot of must-win armbands are coming out. I think that's fair. I think Joe's right. And if Burrow's up there saying it, it's hard to argue with it in this case. I mean, if you lose to the Raiders to go 0-5 at home, and you're 3-6 on a short week going to Baltimore and everything else you've got left on your schedule, it's just good night, Irene. I don't argue with that. Do you argue with that? It's a hard argument to make against that.
No, I mean, it's such a week to week league, and you can't just say, oh, based on this one game, they don't have a chance to turn it around. But that for everything you laid out, they would only have one AFC win at this point. They would 0-5 at home. I mean, I did the stats before. There's only 4 teams that have made the playoffs after starting 0-4 at home in the Super Bowl era. So it's just that I can't imagine any of them went 0-5. This is as must win as it gets. And you're right. There's probably going to be, I don't know if it seems like Baltimore will be one too. Even if they win this game, Baltimore's going to feel like, because you can't go 0-2 against those guys. And you could maybe bounce back from a loss there, but this is the one they have to focus on just because of the math and just because of who the opponent is. You cannot lose to the Raiders.
Yeah. Yeah. You have so many wins that you have to get, and there's so many that are going to be hard. Really that contingent of 2 against Pittsburgh, Denver, right? I mean, Chargers are all going to be the teams that you're going to be competing with for those last couple of wild card spots, more than likely, depending on what happens with Baltimore and Pittsburgh in the North. And so that's probably where you're going to be decided. The idea of then making it so you have zero margin for error if you lose to a Raiders team that you have no business losing to. Yeah, no question. The urgency must-win statements from Burrow ring true. Raiders are 2-6. They've lost 4 in a row. They've gone 5 straight without breaking 20 points. As far as points per drive, offensively, they are 26th. Defensively, they are 20th. Turnover margin, they are tied for worst in the league with old friend Brian Callahan and Will Levising Titans. They have 11 turnovers in their last 4 games. They've just been, and Gardner Minshew has just been a turnover machine at this point.
Yeah, they'd have a turnover in every single game this year. They have the 3rd longest active streak of games with a turnover. Surprisingly, the Chiefs are first at 13, but you mentioned it, Brian Callahan and the Titans are at 9, the Raiders at 8. How about a little quiz? How about the record for most consecutive games with a giveaway in the Super Bowl era. How long do you think that streak is?
Wow, that's a good question. Most consecutive games in the Super Bowl era with a giveaway over multiple seasons, right? So
Yeah.
you're
Oh,
counting.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, 25.
99.
Oh, come on.
The Buffalo Bills from 1966 to 1973, 99 straight games with a giveaway. The post 1970 record, 67 by the Cleveland Browns, and from 1976 to 81. So, yeah, Raiders feeling pretty good sitting there at 8.
Not enough people talking about taking care of the football back in the 70s is sort of the moral of the story. You're supposed to know the football. It holds your hopes and dreams and your aspirations. You can't just give it up.
And think about that. 99 and the next longest is 67. That's
Give
insane.
me somebody from that Bills team. That's incredible. BetMGM line has the Bengals as a 7-point favorite as we talk right now, over under at 46.5. Weather 73 degrees and cloudy right now. Rain early in the day, 40% chance of that. So potential for the dreaded rain. Not the rain. No. Potential for rain, 40% chance right now. We'll see if that plays out. The Raiders were last here on the game that ended the playoff win drought. You may remember that if you're a Bengal fan. The Bengals' breakout game in Las Vegas came that year, 32-13. Their last regular season game here, Jay, John Gruden versus Marvin Lewis in 2018. Jeff Driscoll was the quarterback in that game. So that's pretty sweet. Do you know who the leading receiver was for the Bengals in that game?
In 2018?
Can you give me the top? Let's say, give me a couple. Give me a couple receivers from that game.
How about Alex Erickson?
Alex Erickson's in the mix. He had 3 receptions for 23 yards.
Okay.
Who else?
It was 18, you said, right?
Yeah.
Was Auden Tate here in 18? Is that his rookie
wasn't
year?
in this game. John
No.
Ross had 1 for 6.
Ooh.
Cody Core had 1 for 10.
Cody Core.
Matt Langle was targeted twice. Sam Hubbard was targeted once in that game. Tyler Boyd, 4 for 38, was their leading receiver. That was the leading receiver from Jeff Driscoll in that game. If you're feeling great. So yeah, it wasn't. I mean, they were trotting out. This is the point of the season. They were trotting out Driscoll. They still had Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard. They were trotting out Driscoll, John Ross, Tyler Boyd, Alex Erickson, Cody Core, Matt Langle, CJ Uzama. It was the end of that 18. It was the end of Marvin days. At that point. It was dark times at that point. The last time that we saw the Raiders here in the regular season. So there's a little bit of your history on that. Jay, do you have any referee outlooks for me? What do we got?
Yeah, first, I that's got to be Sam Hubbard's only career target, because we were just talking to him the other week, and he was talking about how he's been begging Zach to play offense because Marv played him on offense a lot as a fullback in goal line. I don't remember them ever throwing to him. I'll have to go back and look at that. The referee stat this week, so it's a little unique. It's Brad Rogers, and I thought that they would get Brad Rogers last week. They were scheduled to have John Hussey, and Brad Rogers was on his bye because he had just refereed the game in London, the Patriots-Jaguars game, and maybe he did what my wife and I did, stayed over there, stayed on vacation. That's why he couldn't work a game last week. So it was weird. The Bengals, Scott Novak was supposed to do the Monday night game with the Steelers and Giants, and they're like, well, that's close enough. Why don't you just work Sunday's Bengals-Eagles game and then pop over? So he did. He did 2 games in 2 days. So now Brad Rogers jumps in. He's only done 3 Bengals games before. He's been a referee since 2015. 2019. His very first game as a referee was Zach Taylor's very first game as a head coach. That was the 2019 season opener in Seattle when the Bengals lost that game 21-20. He did a Bengals game last year. He did Jake Browning's first career start against the Steelers. That was a 16-10 Bengals loss. And he did a 2020 game, again, end of the year, week 16, after the Burrow injury. Bengals won that game 37-31 against the Texans. Brad Rogers ranks 5th among the 17 referees and their crews in number of penalties thrown per game at 13.3.
All right. So heavy flag game on the way.
Yeah.
Raining flags.
Raining
Bengals
flags.
Raiders, man, let's sell it, right? Come on down to Paycor Stadium. Who's in? All right. We've got, let's get into some news from this week, from yesterday. T. Higgins worked on the side with trainers, so a decent sign in his progress. We'll see more of how he tracks this week. Orlando Brown did not. He was out there just basically watching. So that's not a super sign for him playing this weekend. Even though he did kind of come out of nowhere to play last weekend. I don't think that's trending in a great direction. We learned yesterday that a dome would cost $1 billion. Hey, that's cool. Can anybody think of anything else that the city could do with checks notes? $1 billion, please.
You don't need a dome. I mean, there's not even been that many bad weather games. Everybody talks about the Freezer Bowl. Yeah, that was crazy. But in Paycor Stadium history, there's not been that many that you were like, oh, I wish they had a dome.
Right. Well, and I hear you thinking you're going to be able to have many more big time events that you could get. Would they be able to get a Super Bowl with a dome? Would they be able to get some of these bigger conventions, whatever? I'm going to need to have some confirmation on that. If you're just putting an open air over the top of some things that you're still going to be able to. I'm just saying, can we talk a little bit about what else we could do with $1 billion before we start talking about the dome? Anyway, Lamar Jackson has an injury.
Yeah.
Showed up with a back and a knee and didn't practice. It's not nothing, sounds like. So that's something just to keep an eye on. Ravens are a week away from, next Thursday night in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep an eye on what happens with him as far as playing this weekend, and how effective he looks and what's going on with that. So just something to note coming out of yesterday. Let's talk a little bit about some potential changes, Jay. So I have this story up in The Athletic and talking a little bit about the idea of, so many people are saying Zach needs to give up the play calling and Lou Anarumo should be gone, and everybody wants everybody's head. And I know it, I hear it, right? And understandable stuff there. A play calling change with Zach Taylor giving it up does not sound like something that is going to happen. I know fans may want it. I think that they're confident in the way things are currently operating. Joe Burrow is comfortable in the way that things are currently operating, said as much yesterday. And they feel like that, look, this is an offense that's still, I'll pull up some of their rankings this year and in recent years, that points per drive right now in this season is still a top 10 offense. And you still have a group that over the last 3 years has been a top 10 offense, 8th in points per drive there over the last 3 years combined, 9th right now. As high, they were 5th in 2022. They're 3rd in red zone percentage right now. They're top 10 in third downs. I think that the way the defense has been exposed, Jay, has put a microscope certainly on the failures, and there have been some, and there's no denying that, of an offense. But still, in the big picture, the idea of making that type of a dramatic change with a team that is currently top 10 in a lot of these predictive stats, I don't think that's not someplace that they're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, not just the production, but the timing. It would have made sense when Brian was here because they saw things the same. Brian was 5 years as an offensive coordinator. I mean, I think Dan Pitcher has a future in this league as a play caller, as a head coach, even potentially, but he's still in his first year as an offensive coordinator. If you're going to make that switch, you do that at the beginning of the year and let him kind of feel it out early in the season, we talked about earlier, there's no margin for error right now. You can't have a guy learning on the fly how to be a play caller. It just, maybe it gets revisited in the offseason. Even then, I doubt it. If there's a good chance Dan Pitcher's not here next year, he gets a play calling job somewhere. So it just, right now, it doesn't make sense to make that kind of move when it's the same with the offense. Like you talked about the bad position the defense has put them in. There's no margin of error for this offense because the defense can't stop anybody. And there's no margin of error to have a guy learning a job on the fly at the midpoint of the season.
Yeah. And either way, and they had a chance to reevaluate it all over the course of this offseason, with the move from Brian to Dan. And Dan did a ton of play calling, or really running the offense in the offseason program. Zach Taylor kind of backed away from that and let Pitcher kind of be able to put his stamp and his voice and establish himself as the one running that route. It's not like something that wasn't thought about or considered in general, just in the fact that you're reconsidering how everything works. You had new people. Justin Riscatti's here, Pitcher in a new role. All those things you're considering. Well, how do we operate? How should we operate? And landed in this same place, and couldn't be stopped. They've had multiple games where they haven't punted, and I think that at this point, when you got to have wins, I think you're going to bank on some of the continuity and not make drastic changes like that. The other one that comes up and I address in there is Lou Anarumo on the hot seat, right? I mean, we have talked, Marvin Lewis coming to town this week. One of the last times we saw a defense that struggled like this was really that Terrell Austin season that 2018 season we were just talking about. And Marvin Lewis did something that I don't think any of us saw coming and relieved Terrell Austin of his duties midseason and took over the defensive play calling himself. And moved on from a coordinator. Felt like that voice wasn't resonating. That's not something that I see coming at this moment. And it doesn't, part of it being the fact that I think the defense will probably look closer to the group that you saw against the Browns and the Giants the rest of the way. You know why, Jay? Because they're playing teams like the Browns and the Giants the entire rest of the way. They don't have a single game outside of the Ravens game. A single game against a team with an offensive DVOA in the top half of the league right now left on their schedule. It's all these teams. It's Gardner Minshew's. It's, the Chargers offense has been bad. Yeah. They haven't been able to score. You have Bo Nix and Denver have been getting by with their defense. Will Levis and the Titans, we know the mess that they've been. I mean, their whole schedule, look, Pittsburgh twice with, maybe their offense will be better, but their game every week looks the same. That ugly Pittsburgh defense and a few plays and defense, special teams, whatever. So I think there's a stabilization that you think you can get. And don't forget, 7 of the 11 current starters are people that were there, part of the playoff Super Bowl run, the arrival of the mad scientist, right? And believer Lou guys. And we talked about this briefly the other day. But that does not feel, it would have to go so much further south than it currently is, and that's saying something. Because there's nowhere to go. Where else are you going to go? Yeah. And I think you're just counting on that connection being good enough and stabilizing to the level that it was against some of these bad defenses they're going to see, and then maybe some people grow into it. But doing a complete restart without really any realistic option that you like where to go next doesn't make any sense and isn't something that seems to be, even a part of the discussion at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, how many times we talk about it? Mike Brown's not a fan of paying someone not to coach. Lou is under contract, I believe, through next year. And you go back, remember after the 2020 season, we thought he might be gone. I remember sitting down and talking with him at the Senior Bowl about how thankful he is that he was getting a third season and things flipped and turned around. And so you're right. And the 2018 comp, I mean, that was NFL historic bad. This is problematic what they're going through right now. It's nothing like what that was, where you're giving up 50 and 40. And that was just a total train wreck. But that maybe the biggest piece is who do you turn to? James Betcher has been a DC before, but I just think Lou has enough time on task invested with Zach where it would have to go so far south for them to even consider doing anything in season. Now, if it keeps going like this, maybe it's a discussion we have at the end of 2024.
Yeah, and this is more about a mid-season move. I don't, off-season I think is a different conversation probably, but I mean they've spent 6 years together. Like, Terrell Austin had just showed up.
Yeah.
It was a new voice that was not connecting, and that's the stuff that can happen. I mean, this is somebody. It's not just a new voice; it's a respected voice, not just in the room but across the league that people have reason to believe in, and the people that are listening to him have reason to believe in, has done great things and gotten them paid, right? Like so many of those guys. And so it's not like you have some disconnect between coordinator and a bunch of players that think he's a phony, like that's just not the case there. So that's why, you would, it's not anywhere approaching that point right now. Change Jermaine Burton. Okay, kind of the story to come out of this past week, and we talked about this in the walkout and post game is that it's rising now for Jermaine Burton, who had his biggest snap count of the year, and Andre Iosivas has just fallen off the face of the earth, and Joe's not really looking to him, and when he did, he dropped a ball, and now all of a sudden Jermaine Burton's making plays, and okay, now it appears it might be time to unleash the 3rd round pick and give him a real shot, because it sounds like, he's been earning that. I want to give you a little bit of our conversation with offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher, specifically talking about Jermaine Burton and the direction that he's headed after what happened this weekend and what it could look like going forward.
Yeah, it was a good day for Jermaine. I thought, obviously he made the one big explosive play down the sideline. If you just watch I think he had 24, 25 snaps. If you just rip through the game and watch Jermaine on every snap with a discerning eye, he did some good stuff. He created separation. We're going to keep working on the consistency element with Jermaine, knowing that dependability and for the quarterback with receivers is critical. And I thought Sunday absolutely was a step in the right direction for him there. So, happy with what he showed on Sunday.
Joe talked about keeping the dialogue going with Jermaine.
Yeah.
What does that specifically mean in your eyes?
Well, I think it's just like that dependability that I'm talking about. Like that occurs through multiple avenues. One is just doing it, seeing him do it. That's the most important avenue. And then the secondary avenue would be that line of communication and talking through, okay, I need you here. Here's why. All right, what's the look in your eye when I tell you that? Mm-hmm. Do you understand me? Are you just kind of nodding and I'm not quite sure if you understand me? Yeah. Are you looking at me with a blank stare like I'm speaking Chinese? Mm-hmm. Like that's the dialogue and the communication that I'm sure he's referring to, and it happens with any relationship between any two teammates, but between a quarterback and a young receiver, it's critical to how fast that guy can contribute. So, and as the veteran leader, it's that falls within the landscape of Joe's responsibility, is to help Jermaine come along that way. And I think he's done a good job of that, and I think it'll continue.
Do you have an example from Sunday where, like how from what Burton did on like how far he's come when it comes to speaking not Chinese but English?
I would just say, again, he was out there for more plays by far than he's been out there all year, and for the most part, he executed his assignment. There was not, there wasn't any palms up. What do I got here? There wasn't any, ran the completely wrong route. I mean, there's things that there's elements of what he did that needed to be corrected, but in general, guy that got the call, lined up right, ran the route he's supposed to run, and so those may sound like little things, but when you're again developing the consistency and the dependability, it was good, and he's gonna make plays. We know that.
How was his route on Slay in the end zone?
It was good. He won. There was things that we've talked to him about that could have made that better. And maybe it would help in our execution of that play ultimately. But that was one example of him creating separation, and there was plenty of them.
So there's Dan Pitcher talking a little bit more about Jermaine Burton. I know that this is a low bar, but ran all the right routes, didn't look over with his palms up. Like I think that's kind of, not looking at you like you're speaking Chinese, right? That's where it has been at with Jermaine.
Yeah.
Burton, is feeling like you're speaking Chinese to him. And every time you go out there to run a play, he either runs the wrong one or has his palms up, right? That's not happening as much anymore. And so then the trust, and let's be honest, desperation builds in Joe Burrow and this offense to involve him, because outside of T and Chase, there's not enough great stuff happening anywhere else. The run game has gone to crap. You're not getting enough out of that. The checkdowns, you're not getting enough out of that. The screen game's mostly non-existent. The other receivers haven't given you anything. And then here's Jermaine Burton going out there, getting separation and catching deep balls. Well, you can hear, and Burrow talked about it, his role is going to expand. Zach Taylor talked about it, his role is going to expand. It sounds like Jermaine Burton's season is here in a big way.
Yeah, and perfect timing. I mean, with the T injury, I think a lot of people think that maybe that's why he saw so much time on the field. If T's healthy and plays, you mentioned it, I think it's more Burton and less Andre Yoshivas at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And they need it. They need that explosion. It is interesting, the running the wrong route stuff, and that's what you worry about. It just takes one little mistake, and it can end up in an interception. I did want to point out too, because people probably, I know we all saw it in the stadium. I don't know if they showed it on the broadcast copy or not, but the play where Joe Burrow was irate because they couldn't get the snap off because because Burton was running on the field, and Zach pointed out that was not Jermaine Burton's fault at all. They were, anytime he called for Jermaine to run on, and anytime, even if you take a step on, then the officials have to step in and stop the play and allow the defense to sub. And you see Burrow's demeanor. I've rarely seen him that pissed on a field, and it had nothing to do. It was just a circumstance. Zach said it was nobody's fault. It was just a timing circumstance. They made a play call to get Jermaine in, and Joe wanted to go fast, and it just didn't sync up. But it's interesting. He had, Pitcher mentioned it, 24 snaps on Sunday. He had 25 combined in the first 7 games. 3 of those, this is how you send a young guy a message. He had 3 snaps in one of those games, and they were all kneel downs at the end of the game. That's how you're telling a guy, you need to do more. If you want to get on the field in more important plays than this, you've got to be on point with getting lined up correctly and running the right routes. And it does. It feels like this is a really big pivot point in his rookie season.
They need it,
Yes.
and we've seen this, I'll point to, the Chiefs last year, right? A big turning point for an offense for them that wasn't at the levels they thought it was going to be with Patrick Mahomes was Rashee Rice becoming a dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden. And his role grew, and next thing you know, he was the biggest thing they get. And you see examples of this every year. It takes time for rookie receivers. And I think Jermaine, the reason he was in the 3rd round was it was going to take longer for him, right? That's just kind of part of the quote unquote different personality that we saw in all the scouting reports about him coming out. And so the fact that they feel like they've got enough where they can trust him, and Burrow's working on that that's part of his job. And then I think Pitcher said, look, Joe's job is to get Jermaine up to the level he needs to be at. And that is his job because they need him now. You see what he can do. He's going to make plays when he has the chance. They just have to give him that chance. And Burrow spoke for a long time as well, very glowingly about what he's seen as far as growth from Jermaine now as they reach the halfway point. So maybe he can be that extra bit that they need to make the offense a little bit more explosive. You know what else they could use, Jay?
What's that?
A single decent run. Like,
yes.
I mean, it's wild. And you wrote about the run game a little bit this week. And I mean, it's been the last month. It's been by far the worst in the NFL. What was your biggest takeaway of kind of doing a quick run game look?
Well, I mean, it's just it feels like the same old answers where they're just a tick off on execution, or that be more physical at the point of attack. It seems like there's not one thing that's holding them back, but it's surprising because for the first 5 weeks, Chase Brown was one of the most explosive runners in the game, and his yards per carry were way up, and it's just 7 explosive runs in those first 5 weeks, 2 since. And that was the whole point of this offseason, was to get more explosive in the run game. And they have 12 explosive runs through 8 games by their running backs. You know, it doesn't count the Burrow 47-yard touchdown, that just the running backs, 12. Joe Mixon has 12 explosive runs, and he's only played 5 games. He's second in the league in explosive runs per game. I don't know what the answer is. Calling it more, I think, getting a lead and running the ball more. They talk all the time about the dam's going to break. The dam's going to break. You just got to keep pounding it. You got to keep pounding it. And like that game Sunday against the Eagles, it got away from them in the second half because of the turnovers, and you just can't run it. And it feels like this is an offense that is built on that, where you do need to slam it up in there a few times and then it's going to pop. But the short yardage hasn't been there. The 3rd and 1 that preceded the 4th and 1, just getting nothing there. It's something that has to get better. You're getting arguably the best season of Joe Burrow's career, and nothing from the run game right now. If that run game, it doesn't have to be great. It's just like we talked about the offensive line all those years. They don't have to be great in protecting Burrow. You just got to be average. If they can just get a little bit more production out of that run game, I think you're going to see this offense get back to where they're scoring 30 and leading the league, or being out top 2 or 3 in points per drive. They've slid. What were they on your chart now? 8th, 9th? Down
to the bottom of the top 2. Yeah, 9th.
Yeah. First 5 weeks they were number 1. So that's how you get back there.
Yeah. And they have, been against some tougher fronts, but this is the NFL, man. Like there's tough fronts every week. Guess what? Max Crosby's going to be lining up across from you this week. So, good luck in going at him in that motor. So I that's the way it goes. I'm with you. An interesting thing that we heard in a couple press conferences and talking to Lou and Zach this week was about, okay, the run game is not quite working. Excuse me, talking to Pitch, but you want to simplify. Do you want to simplify it, or do you want to do more? Like how do you fix it? Right? Do you say, look, because they've been doing a lot of tinkering, and they're in this pistol, and they're running chase certain things, and they're moving away from Zach Moss. They're out here doing bone runs, right? Like they're just like they're out. They're doing a lot of different stuff, and it feels like maybe, and I think it's a coaching philosophy. Do you try to do different things, or do you try to do fewer things and simplify what you're doing? They feel like a group that needs to simplify what they're doing a little bit when it comes to the run stuff. It's like, look, get in gun. Let Burrow be out there trying to pick people apart, especially when you get the light boxes when T. Higgins comes back. Like that does change a lot. That does open up a ton. And try to do your best runs in your most advantageous situations that Burrow can check you into. And otherwise, because I think you also, the dam will break philosophy to me is also about just letting Burrow continue to feed, like letting Burrow throw. And eventually the dam's going to break on getting an explosive for Jamar or for T, like we saw in Cleveland, right? Where it's just eventually there's the run, there's the throw that connects and breaks a tackle and goes for a touchdown or whatever. I think that's also a part of the dam will break. I don't think you all of a sudden say we're gonna pound the crap out of the ball and go 0-9 Bengals like Cedric Benson's back there and try to win games just handing it off 30 times. Like I don't think that's the way to go. I think you just simplify, run in advantageous situations, and do what you do best, specifically when T. Higgins comes back. But I don't know. We'll see how they go forward with it. They just need to get a little bit and get a little bit more efficiency on top of some explosiveness, because too many 3rd and longs are making it have to turn into too much Joe Burrow hero ball back there.
3rd and 22. I mean,
you
got one. You're not going to get that. Maybe once every 20 times.
Yeah.
They've had a few 3rd and longs that they've got, but that you can't live in that.
No. All right. On that note, Jay, you were able to catch up with Marvin Lewis this week.
Yeah, it was great to talk to him. I was surprised. I asked him about, you'll hear in the interview, but being a head coach, it's something that he really wanted to do after he left Cincinnati, and he's right adjacent to it. He's the associate head coach and really helping Antonio out. But it was really good to hear from him. I felt horrible because I asked to talk to him and he called me twice and left voicemails, and my phone I was literally looking at my phone and the banner pops up that you have a voicemail from Marvin Lewis. It never rang. It never showed I was getting a call. But we did eventually hook up and sat down, talked with him for about 16 minutes. What we're going to play for you here is a little bit shorter of that. It's about 9 minutes of what Marv is going through, coming back with his emotions, and what's going on with the Raiders right now.
Yeah, Vegas quite a bit different than Cincinnati. Have you thought about what it's going to be like coming back to town this weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be, obviously it was a special time for me, my family, and so forth. So that part, is going to be special. The friendships, the relationships, and, whether it's within the Bengal organization and outside. So, it's really, pretty cool.
I mean, you were here a couple years for Chad's induction, right? A couple years ago?
Yeah, just last year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was last year.
First time, obviously, I've been back in the stadium.
Yeah, you think it'll feel different coming in as a coach and going through that part of it?
It'll be different on the other sideline. At least that day I was on the home sideline.
I guess it was about 130 games you coached in that building. Do you have a favorite moment or game that stands out from your time here?
Well, I think, obviously, I said this last week as we were getting ready to play the Chiefs, that, I thought the game against the Chiefs in 2003 was kind of a defining moment. I can remember, Corey Dillon was hurt for that game. Mm-hmm. And him talking to me during the game, and just the belief, that everybody had bought in. And I think that was a cool moment.
You mentioned the relationships. Do you have any plans to catch up with anybody Saturday night after your meetings break, or just be a quiet night?
Well, yeah, I think, most of the people that, I'll see, I've seen quite a bit. We usually, vacation with them, or they've then come to visit us in Arizona and so forth. So, I've got some friends that, I played golf with a lot, and I'll probably see most of them, when I was away from the stadium type. But, I got a chance last year when I was there to spend 2 hours with Mike and the family upstairs, which was great. And, and then to see Elizabeth and Caroline and the great things they're doing with the club, that's fun for me, watching those girls grow up, and from the girls that were ball girls for us at practice to now, being, damn near running an NFL football franchise, or a big part of it. It's really cool.
2 hours is a long time to spend in Mike's office. I know you guys used to talk every morning. How long were those conversations?
They might be 5 minutes or 55 minutes, that was the beauty of it is, our ability to talk each day. So, nothing was a surprise. And, when people left me to take other jobs as head coaches, et cetera, that was such a strength that I had there. The fact that, he and I had the relationship where we could talk each morning, and, there were things on his mind. There might be things on my mind. And we spoke about them, and then, set the direction each and every day. And, not many people are invested like that, like he is in the football team. That's all he cares about, is that football team and winning on Sunday.
Yeah. What is your role with the staff? Darren described it earlier this week as kind of coaching the coaches. Are you working with the defense, or are you more kind of scouting the opposing defenses and helping Luke out with the offense?
Well, I do both those things you said. but I try to provide some insight of what I see of the defense we're about to face. Who are the key players, where I think the strengths and weaknesses lie. And then I spend a lot of time with the defensive coaches and just help wherever I'm asked to do. And then, a lot of time, with Antonio and some of his decisions, meeting with his person who works in game management. And, they, kind of run things kind of through me during the week. And, it's difficult during the game, but he'll ask me to listen in as they speak. And then he may ask me, but, usually it's speak when spoken to.
Mm-hmm. I know the last time we talked, it was either right before or right after you did the interview with Bryant Gumbel about how much you wanted another shot to be a head coach. Is that something that still drives you, or are you good kind of settling into this role?
No, that ship sailed.
Yeah.
That ship sailed for many reasons. And, no, I'm just here to assist. My role is to help Antonio, and that's why I'm doing this. Otherwise I would not be doing this. I'd spend more time with my grandsons.
Yeah.
But right now it's to help him and help his staff, do what I can do to help them as much as I can every day.
I'm kind of going back to, I'm sorry. Kind of going back to what you said about watching the other team's defense, offense, getting ready for the games. Just what have you seen from this Bengals offense this year?
Well, obviously they have just impressive players at every position. And, they have guys who can make plays, whether it be the receivers, the tight ends. They all know their roles, they without Chase last week, so they plug in the new rookie, and, he's able to go make plays, and, they're impressive that way. They put a lot of good people around Joe, being there on the field in pregame there in October last year, watching Joe. I was so impressed with him. That's as close as I've ever been to him. And so it's an impressive, football team. Obviously, the defense plays very, very hard. Really the only guy that I've ever had any, is Sam, who's still there left on the team. But, with the accomplishments, Trey Hendrickson has done so well. They've got, the inside two tackles are back playing now. And, Sam just is so doggone smart. And you got to be Logan Wilson. I was so impressed with the two linebackers just physically when I was there on the field watching them, before the game last year. So, it's a team I'm familiar with. I know the kicker's been excellent since they've got him, since Darren's gotten him. And I know he's got a new rookie punter, but, if anybody's going to get guys right, it's Darren Simmons.
Yeah.
And, obviously Darren and I go back to 1996.
Yeah.
When Darren was a ball boy for me in training camp. So, obviously, he was the coach, one of the first coaches that I hired. And, obviously I hit the jackpot. So, it's been, I just, a lot of people there that mean a lot to me.
I asked him the other day if he had any favorite stories of yours, and it was in a group setting. So he said he would think about it and get back to me today. Do you have any favorite Darren Simmons stories?
I don't know. Nobody remembers this other than probably me and Darren, but, we literally had to get a new kicker and punter 3 days before our first game.
Oh.
Or 4 days before our first game there in Cincinnati. Literally. And I don't think anybody remembers that. But, obviously Darren does. Here we are. It's his first time being the guy. It's my first time being the guy. And we got to change out the punter and the kicker, on Monday or Tuesday before the season starts.
What happened? I don't remember that.
Well, Rackers got hurt in Indianapolis, and the punter couldn't hold.
That's a problem.
Man, other than that, and so I remember going home, and that was it was my first time in Cincinnati, and that was fireworks day, and literally I come home out of downtown because everybody says you got to get out of downtown, and I go home, and my wife and son and daughter were in the driveway acting because we couldn't kick the PAT or a field goal in Indianapolis because the kicker couldn't kick and the punter couldn't hold. And so they were mimicking those three players. It made me laugh. And so I couldn't wait to tell Darren the next day about that.
There is Jay's conversation with Marvin Lewis. Great stuff there with Marvin, who was willing to go back down memory lane with you, and obviously a big part of what they're doing there in Vegas right now. Kind of coaching the coaches was kind of how I think it's been termed.
Yeah, it was. So I talked to him. I had to cut some of it out for brevity, but one of the things I asked him about was, you see this kind of a growing trend in the league where everybody's going to younger head coaches, and to offset that, they're hiring guys like Marvin to be senior advisors on the staff. And I had asked him about who he leaned on when he came in 2003. They didn't have a senior assistant, and he said it was Jim Anderson was the guy that really, he was a veteran coach, but he'd never been a head coach before. So what I thought was really interesting is he said that Dick Vermeil and Bill Parcells called him a lot and checked in on him to see how he was doing, if he needed anything. And he said the guys he was closest with were Bill Cowher and Brian Billick, but he's like, we're in the same division. We're trying to beat each other. They're not going to help me now that we're still friends. But so he didn't have really much to lean on. And I just thought that was cool. And we've heard that before, that when I did the story, when Zach went 0-11 to start his career, and the number of coaches that reached out to him and said, hey, I went through this kind of thing before, and really kind of pumped him up and helped him get through that. And Dick Vermeil was one of those guys too. So I just thought that was cool that Bill Parcells and Dick Vermeil were willing to do that for a young coach in Marvin.
And cool for Marvin to be back there. And I feel like everybody has kind of, Joe Burrow fixed a lot of things in Cincinnati. I think he also kind of fixed the fans' relationship with Marvin Lewis. Although I went through a little bit of PTSD listening to that interview, Jay. Just a little bit just taking me back to every Monday, Wednesday for the entirety of the early portion of my career of all of that laugh. Often at my expense, is taking me back without question. But I think that fans have come to terms with the good that Marvin Lewis did here, which I think in the big picture of things far, far outweighed. He didn't win enough, and there was tons of issues there, especially in the postseason. But boy. So much good that he did in turning things around from truly as dark as it can get in an organization when he took over to make them more than relevant and do a lot of great things in this community as well. All right, let's get to our stuff here. So we've got to get into run pass or boot. You want to start with the run pass or boot for this week?
So what happens first in Sunday's game? We talked about it. Raiders 11 turnovers in the last 4 games. Bengals have had 2 games this year when they haven't punted. Evan McPherson struggles from 50 plus. So what happens first on Sunday? A Raiders turnover, a giveaway, a Bengals punt, or an Evan McPherson field goal of any distance?
That's a good one. I'll say a McPherson field goal. I will run with McPherson field goal. I will pass on a Raiders. You know what? I'll pass on the punt and I'll boot the Raiders giveaway. I don't think they're going to give it away immediately. That feels that feels like a little much. So I will say I think there will obviously be one. I think there will probably be one, but I will say it comes a little bit later. So I'll go field goal, punt, and then I will boot the giveaway.
Yeah, I'm going to flip yours. I'm going to run with the punt. This is a good Raiders defense. It's not great, but it's good. And we've seen the Bengals kind of do this. They want to get out of it, but kind of feel their way out early in games. Now they had the 17-yard touchdown drive to open the game last week. But I could see there being a punt or two before they get this offense rolling. And then I do think McPherson will get a field goal fairly early. I think he's going to get several in this one. You hear my predicted final score. The giveaway is interesting. If the Bengals can get 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, they have a chance. There's a really weird streak, and I was surprised that it was not as long as it is, but where it stands in Bengals lore. They've gone 20 games without a defensive score, and that doesn't seem like a lot. And it's only the 5th longest streak in the NFL right now. The Chargers are at 29, Cardinals 24, Steelers somehow 23 straight games without a defensive touchdown. It seems like they get one every single game when you watch them. Lions 23 in a row without one. But for the Bengals, this is the 5th longest streak of that kind in franchise history. The longest was 42 games, and it was the first 42 games of the Zach Taylor, Lou Anarumo era. It started with that game in Seattle in 19. The other ones are all right there. They could, at some point in November, they could be up to the 2nd longest streak. The 2nd longest is 23. That was back in the mid 80s. They had a 23 game streak from 15 to 17. And then they had a 22 game streak from 11 to 12. The last Bengals defensive touchdown was Cam Taylor-Britt in Arizona last year, that short pick 6. So if it's going to end, this is a good chance against a team that turns the ball over a lot.
Yeah, and it feels like that's what this defense needs. And it doesn't have to be a score, but they just have to start being that team that creates those turnovers. I mean, that's how they probably turn things around, and it's part of what their dynamic was the last couple of years was that maybe they were giving up yards, but not points because they were getting turnovers and red zone stops, and the red zone has not been good, and the turnovers have not come this year. Probably 2 areas where they can salvage a lot defensively if they can start being a team that creates those again. All right, Growler Bet this week. Of course, send in your submissions to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com, or you can send them on Twitter using the hashtag Bengals Growler Bet. And if you're sending us the email, we always love you to entertain in the subject header, and we will give you a shout out on our Tuesday show. So this week, we're going to go with, kind of a little bit of a mini storyline of the week here. What are we going to see out of Jermaine Burton? How much are they going to involve him? We've only seen a couple of receptions so far, 2 long bombs, but will he get more intermediate stuff? Will he hit a bunch of deep balls? What will happen? I feel like it's all over the map what this could look like. Will T. Higgins even play?
Yeah, that's it.
So also another part of this. That said, Jermaine Burton receiving yards is this week's Bengals Growler Bet. So send those in to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com with Growler in the subject header, or you can send them on Twitter, hashtag Bengals Growler Bet. What's your answer this week, Jay?
Yeah, I'm always amazed how fast some people send their answers in. It's like right after we post the episode, they're making their Growler Bet picks. I don't know if they're going to do that this week. I think it would be wise. I wish I could wait and find out till Friday if T. Higgins is going to play or not. I don't know if he will or not. I honestly don't. And I asked Zach, is that something you consider, that next week is a short week in a division game? And he said that always factors into the equation. So it's up in the air, but regardless, I'm just gonna go for the repeat. And he had 46 last week, so I'm gonna go Jermaine Burton 46 again this week.
Okay. I think there will be more. I think, and beyond just a couple more targets and deep ball opportunities, I think they involve him a little bit on some of the other stuff. And so give me 52. I'll go just a touch higher just to maybe try to get a win against you in this. I'll say 52 receiving yards for Jermaine Burton. One decent long one, and maybe a couple of shorts. 3. How about 3 for 52? How's that sound?
Okay.
I think they'd take that today. I mean, T or no T.
Absolutely.
I think they'd take 3 for 52. Better than nothing they've been getting from wide receiver 3 the last few weeks. All right. That said, let's go to predictions. Jay, what do you got?
So I think the Bengals are going to get the offense going again. I don't know that they're going to be up in the 30s like they were earlier, but like you said, maybe simplify the run game, get a little bit more out of that, find something with Jermaine Burton. The Gesicki has shown that he can step up and be a big part of this offense when T doesn't play. So I think they're going to figure out a way to move the ball and get some more points than we've seen the last few weeks. And I also think the defense is going to be better, but not solved. I do think the Raiders are going to score. And when I initially wrote down my prediction, because I've got the Raiders covering or right in cover range, I had 27-20. And then I said, no, let's go back to the wild card game. It was a 7-point margin, 26-19. Let's just relive that night for the Bengals fans and do it again. Run it back. Bengals 26, 4 field goals by Evan McPherson, and 19 for the Raiders. Bunch of field goals for them as well.
Evan McPherson redemption arc game. That's what you're calling for. All right.
Sure.
All right. Why not? I'm with you. I do think that, the Raiders just, they haven't been able to even cross that 20-point barrier. I think the Bengals offense is going to, they've had their issues and been sloppy at times, especially, the Browns and the Giants games have kind of looked like that. I still think there's just plenty of juice there. And I think that they have the ability to get, especially if you get a turnover or two that sets you up with a short field or two. That's the type of thing that the Raiders are going to give to you. Gardner Minshew is going to give to you. Brock Bowers is a problem, man. Like, I went back and I was watching. To start with the Raiders, I wanted to just do a cut up of their third downs from the last 2 weeks. And I honestly didn't know if they had anyone else on the team. Every third down, Gardner Minshew is just finding Brock Bowers, and he's open, and he's completing balls to him. That is their offense right now. There's just a lot of not great players, especially when they have no Devontae Adams traded. Get Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers. Like, they've got an offensive line that's not been great, beat up. They don't even have Michael Mayer. You're talking about a running game that hasn't given them hardly anything. They have Bowers, and it looks like that on the money downs. And so if the Bengals can keep Brock Bowers contained, and that feels like a Travis Kelce game plan from Lou Anarumo of just focus on Kelce type deal. Third down, everybody, all eyes on Bowers, double team on Bowers, make him go somewhere else as a way to slow that down. I think they slow him down a little bit. I still think Bowers gets a touchdown in this game. Going props, Bowers anytime TD and a Burton anytime TD. How you like that? That's a nice combo if you want to put that together. My free BetMGM advice there for you. But I think Bengals win this one, 27-17. Maybe even that defensive TD you talked about, or at least I definitely think they get set up with a short field, courtesy Gardner Minshew, and that's a big reason they go on and win this game. And we put all eyes on Baltimore, a place where last year's season essentially came to an end almost exactly a year later, again on Thursday night. Wondering what it will look like a year later with Baltimore with a chance to deliver a knockout blow to them. But we shall see. Or it all just ends on Sunday, Jay.
Yeah, that is always a possibility.
Do you have an Arby's to take us out?
I do. So we talked, our good friend Paul Hirons is here with the Bengals UK group. They came in last weekend, went to the Bengals-Eagles game on Sunday. He got to take in the FC Cincinnati playoff game Monday night. Maybe the highlight of his week was last night because he was with me. And I cannot thank him enough. My ears are still ringing. My soul is still buzzing. Paul contacted Jack White's PR people and said he's written some stuff for a music magazine in England. And he said, is there any way I could get on the guest list for the show tonight? Jack White, just a pop-up show. He just announced it a couple days ago. He was playing Bogarts of all places. Very hard ticket to get, sold out instantly. So Paul tells me he got on the guest list. I was like, oh, that is awesome. I am so jealous. And so he leaves and he goes to have dinner, and then he starts blowing up my phone. Because I wasn't answering, he starts blowing up Emily Parker from the Bengals phone. I need to talk to Jay. He found out he had a +1 on the guest list. So he asked me if I wanted to go, and I said absolutely. And so We went and saw Jack White last night at Bogarts. The show was amazing. Paul took this picture for us after it was all over. It was just great. I'm not a huge Jack White fan. I don't have any of his records or anything, but not even knowing that many of the songs, it was just, he was an incredible live performer. Didn't say a word. Went from song to song to song. And it was funny. That must've been a theme of the night because the opening act was called Beef. It's a Cincinnati band. And Beef. And they he's not touring. So he just does this pop-up show and he gives this local band a chance. So they walk out on stage and the drummer, who was also the singer, sits down and he's like, all right, this is gonna be quick and painless. And they just rip in. They played for 24 minutes and I swear they played 12 songs. They just went bam, bam, bam. I don't know if they were shortened versions of their songs or if they're all that short, but they ripped through them, and that was a lot of fun as well. So I can't thank Paul enough for thinking of me to be his +1, and just an incredible night at Bogarts.
We love Paul. We love all the Who Day UK folks, and I know we've. It's been a long time since that first time we went over there and met everybody over in London for the tie against Washington way back in the day. But it's been so fun keeping up, and they've become such a stronghold of the Bengals community, not just the one over there. It's been he and that whole group are so much fun, and they come over now every year. It's always good to get to see them, and hopefully we'll get over there and get over on their side of the pod soon to get to go see them. Would be awesome to go to Germany or wherever the Bengals could end up going. Would be a ton of fun. So hopefully that will be coming in the near future. So all right, thanks everybody for listening. Send in any questions you have for me to Who Day Light. You can go to the Growler Podcast gmail.com, send those in. There's a bunch of them in there already, so I know we're going to be busy going through a lot of airing of the grievances that have happened, but we're going to have some fun with it tomorrow. So hopefully you always can check out Who Day Light with myself and Mark Chalafu, and we'll dive into that. And then Jay and I'll be back with the walkout on Sunday night after the Bengals play the Raiders at 1:00 at Paycor Stadium. So thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Have a good one.